Good evening. God has blessed us again for a great day, with a great day, and we're grateful for that, and grateful for you for joining us on Bible study on this evening. Every Tuesday we have a great time in the Lord, and so we have that time because you guys are part of it, and so we don't take that for granted. You could be doing anything, but you decided to be with us on Bible study, and for that we're grateful. Just a few things I want to jump in before we jump into the Bible study tonight. If you have your Bibles, your iPads, your phones, turn to Hebrews 11. That's where we spend our time on tonight, back in Hebrews chapter 11, and particularly starting at verse number 20 is where we'll spend our time on tonight, and the verses following. But before we jump into the Bible study, I want to just first say we are excited and congratulate again all of our graduates. The Columbia Central High School graduation was on yesterday evening. It was so in high demand you had to have a ticket to get there, and so we're proud of our young people, all of those who graduated on yesterday, who received their diploma. We're super proud of you, and we thank God for you. We're excited about what God has in store for you for your next steps, and so we're proud of you, proud of your parents, all those that pushed you, and just know your church family loves you, and we're thinking about you. As a matter of fact, I've got some gifts for the graduates, so I need all of y'all to be at church on Sunday. All of you. I know none of you were there because y'all stayed out way too late at the prom, and so on this past Sunday, we're looking forward to seeing all of you. The second thing is that our Excel summer camp is coming to Mount Pleasant, the mobile edition. So put that on your calendars. We'll give you the date real soon. Actually, I'll give you the date on Sunday. But make sure that you are praying for us, that you're bringing snacks so we can bless those young people. And then if you're available, be ready to volunteer on that day. And so we're going to actually do a couple things. A couple days prior, 2 to 3 days prior, we're going to be in the neighborhoods passing out information, letting folks know that we're coming back in the next couple days. So I want to give people heads up, let them know, hey, be prepared for us, be ready for us, because we're coming to bless you. And so we're going to come and we're going to pass those out. And then in the next days following, we'll be there with the pizza, with the snacks, with the Bible lessons, with the academic stuff. And so we're excited about that. So that's the Excel Summer Camp in July, the mobile edition at Mount Pleasant. Then our Fifth Sunday Fellowship Back to School giveaway. Thank you all for doing such a tremendous job as related to giving towards our Back to School giveaway. You have one more day left. Today is the 30th, so you got one more day if you want to give today. So go online, go to Cash App, share with us that way. We're a little bit off from 2,000, but I think we have a ram in the bush just in case. But don't let them beat you to it. If you want to give or you hadn't had the opportunity to give, please do, as we buy school supplies for our back to school giveaway. So here's another announcement that I want to share with you about the giveaway, is that there are actually 5 locations now. You heard it right. There were 4, now there are 5. And so listen, this is where we're going to be. We're going to be at Columbia Central High School. We're going to be at Hickman County High School. We're going to be at the Hampshire Unit School. We're going to be at Mount Spring Hill Elementary School. And then we're going to be at Fairview Park. I know it. You're saying to yourself, how in the world we're going to pull all that off, Brother Nelson? God's going to do it. And I'm trusting him for it. And so 5 locations on that one day from 8 to 11, August 1st. Simultaneously, all those drive-through locations will be set up. So we're excited about it. We're looking forward to it. And that's the reason why I needed you all to give towards that back to school giveaway, because we're going to serve a lot of people. A lot of people are going to be blessed, and we couldn't do it without you. And so we're looking forward to that. So that's all I want to share here real quickly. Let's jump into Hebrews chapter 11. I want to look at verses 20 and verse 21. We've been looking at the blessings of faith. Last week, we took a little bit of a detour, of course, still dealing with faith, but we talked about how our faith is under attack, or how the enemy attacks our faith. I wanted you to be prepared for that and understand that and know that the enemy is shrewd, the enemy is specific, strategic, and so I didn't want you to get caught off guard as we're building our faith, that your faith is going to be attacked. Now, I know that's how the enemy works. Once we start building, once we start growing, once we start moving in a positive direction, here comes the enemy to try to knock us off course. And so I wanted to deal with that for a moment, but now I want to go back to Hebrews chapter 11, looking at verse 20 and verse 21, and looking at the blessings of faith. So here it is, verse 20. By faith Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau concerning things to come. By faith Jacob, when he was dying, blessed each one of the sons of Joseph and worshiped, leaning on top of his staff. So here it is, that if you take a step back, you know that we talked about for several weeks Abraham. We kind of peeked in Abraham's life and looked at how it was that God had chosen Abraham in order to go to a country that he didn't know about, in order to follow his direction, because God told him, I'm going to multiply your seed and I'm going to make your name great. I'm going to bless those who bless you, curse those who curse you. And so we know Abraham's story, or we got a glimpse of his story, if you will. But Abraham gives birth to Isaac. We saw it. We know that he gives birth to Isaac. But then the text says that Isaac gives birth to Jacob and Esau. Just stick a pin in that. We're going to go right back to that in a few moments. But I want you to first understand that Abraham giving birth to Isaac, Abraham allows Isaac to be intimately involved in one of the greatest tests of his faith. You do remember that they were on top of Mount Moriah, and Abraham and Isaac went up to the top of Mount Moriah in order to offer sacrifice. As they make their way up to offer sacrifice, Isaac asked a critical question, because the text doesn't say it then, but we got to know it, that Isaac asked the question, Dad, I see all of the things that we need in order for sacrifice, but I don't see the actual sacrifice. I don't see the ram. I don't see a lamb. I don't see the actual sacrifice. And so Abraham, we quote it well, that he says to Isaac that God will provide. So he comforts him and letting him know that, yes, son, we're on our way up here. But what Isaac did not know is that God had already told Abraham that I want you to offer your son Isaac. That's what God told Abraham. I want you to offer Isaac. And it is in this faith test that Abraham allows Isaac to be intimately involved in this place to where they got to trust God. The reason why I wanted to just spend a little moment on that is because I think it's important for us to understand our children need to see us exercise our faith, that they need to see that. Because what happens is when our children see us exercising our faith, trusting God, leaning on God, one of the things it does is it builds their faith. So if my children see me trusting God, leaning on God, giving my allegiance to God, it builds their faith. But not only that, when they see how God shows up, when we explain to them how God shows up, not only does it build their faith, but it establishes a testimony in their life. I don't want you to run by that yes, Abraham passed the test, Abraham trusted God, and God provided the ram in the bush. We know the story. But don't you understand that if Isaac was old enough to understand the process of sacrifice, that Isaac was blessed as well on top of Mount Moriah? That Isaac understood firsthand how it is that God shows up when it is that we need him most. That Isaac himself was laying at the sacrifice. That Isaac was tied to the altar. Isaac was there laid out. Abraham had pulled back his knife in order to sacrifice his son. But the angel showed up, told Abraham, hold on, saw the ram, and replaced the ram with Isaac. And so here it is that you understand that not only does Abraham get blessed, but Isaac gets blessed as well. So the blessings of faith is not just for you, but it's for your children as well. So we pass on these blessings, establishing testimony in the lives of our children. But then the text goes on to talk about that Isaac has two sons, Jacob and Esau. And what we understand about Jacob and Esau is that Isaac blesses their future before his death. We really got to take some time at some point and kind of read through that and look at the story of Jacob and Esau and look at Isaac's interaction with his sons and how it is that Jacob tricked Esau out of his birthright. And many of y'all know the story. It's worth reading. It's worth digging into. I mean, it's powerful to understand how all that works together. But for the sake of time on today, and what I want to point out is that Isaac blesses both his sons before his death. So we're talking about the blessings of faith and how it is that declaration, that statement over his children sowed a seed and then it reaped a benefit. Because if you read later, both Jacob and Esau's families flourish. I don't think that's by accident. I don't think it's by happenstance. That we'll read that they have livestock, they have servants, they have resources, innumerable. Both of them have healthy families. Both of them have resources. Both of them have livestock and servants. I believe that the reason why they were blessed is because their father pronounced the blessing over them. I want you to understand how critical it is for us as parents, specifically fathers, to pronounce blessings over our children. Stop telling them they ain't gonna never be nothing. Stop telling them they hard-headed. Stop telling them they just like their daddy if you and their daddy not together and you're upset about it. Tell them they are great. Tell them they're wonderful. Tell them they're smart and intelligent. Speak blessings over the lives of our children. That's what Isaac did. And then it goes on. Verse 21 talks about that Jacob's favorite son Joseph, that he received a double blessing for both his sons, both Manasseh and Ephraim. I promise you, I wish I had more time to really dig into this. The Hebrew writer is assuming that we know all this leading up to this point. But But Jacob gives his favorite son Joseph a double blessing, a blessing to both his sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. And even as they move into the land of promise, both Manasseh and Ephraim have territory named to them because of the blessing that their father received. So here it is. I know it. You're saying to yourself that they were grandsons, not sons. So why is it that they get this blessing? I tell you, is that favor ain't fair. Joseph was favored by his father. He was favored by God. He had favor on his life, and favor isn't fair. The same rings true for each of us. That when it is that we find ourselves in situations to where we know we didn't deserve the favor, we know we didn't deserve the opportunity, we know we didn't deserve to be in that position where we are, but this is all you can tell, folks: the favor ain't fair. That God shows up sometimes and does some things that simply blows our mind, and it's not because of anything we've done, it's because it's favor on our lives. And so that's exactly what they're experiencing, the favor of God. So here it is. I want to put this in a nice little bow, if you will. What we are witnessing is an example of fathers speaking into the lives of their sons. That's what we're witnessing. That in verse 20 and 21, when it says, by faith Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau. By faith Jacob, when he was dying, blessed each of the sons of Joseph in worship. So what we're seeing is an example of fathers speaking into the lives of their sons. Not only they're speaking to the lives of their sons, but they're pushing them towards their destiny. That's what these fathers are doing. They're holding them accountable by establishing expectations. That's what the fathers are doing. They are calling out what God has placed in them. They are, in fact, affirming their sons in spite of their mistakes. So here it is. None of these sons were mistake-free. None of these sons were innocent. All of them had done something wrong. But what these fathers do, they tell them, in spite of your mistakes, I'm still saying that you're going to be great. I'm still saying that God has great things in store for you. How many young people continue negative behavior because no one tells them they can do something different? I just want you to ask yourself that. How many children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, that they continue in negative behavior because nobody's speaking into their life and telling them, in spite of your mistakes, you still can be wonderful, that you still can be great, you still can be awesome. Yeah, I know that you didn't do what you're supposed to do. I know that things happen at school. I know that things happen on the playground. But in spite of your mistakes, you still have greatness over your life. That's what it is that these fathers did, because none of their children were 100% innocent. They made mistakes. They did stuff that they shouldn't, but the father still spoke over their lives and spoke into their lives. So here it is, y'all, that after verse 20 and 21, the writer of Hebrews, you see it, they discuss the blessings given by the fathers to their children. Then he introduces Moses and his journey. So we see that the fathers are speaking blessings over their children, their faith affirmed, pushing them towards their destiny. And then he segues into Moses. And so now I want to look at and examine for a moment, but I want to show you the tie-in, the faith journey of Moses. That's what I want to talk about next. If you're keeping notes on this afternoon or this evening, I want to look at the faith journey of Moses. So here it is. In Exodus chapter 1, Pharaoh makes a decree because the children of Israel were outnumbering the Egyptians. Here's the decree, that any male child born is to be killed, but the girls could live. Y'all get that? That's Exodus chapter 1. Pharaoh makes a decree because the children of Israel are outnumbering the Egyptians. They're flourishing. God is blessing them. He is multiplying them, growing their family. And so Pharaoh says it's too many of them. So here's what we're going to do. It's every male child, we are going to kill them, but let the girls live. So here it is, y'all. I want you to see this connection. Watch the connection. that previously there's a blessing being pronounced over the lineage of Abraham, specifically the males. Did y'all see that? So verse 20 and 21, there is a blessing pronounced from the fathers to the sons. And then here it is when we see in verse number 23, we see now that the enemy is intentionally trying to destroy God's people by killing the male seed. I want you to understand that there is power in the male seed. That God uniquely designed men to lead, to stand up, to guide, to protect. That is what men have been called to do. And I get it and understand that too many of us have neglected our responsibility, have walked away, have not taken on the mantle that God has placed before us. But I want you to understand, when men move into their proper place, something special happens. It is by no accident that a blessing is pronounced over the men, over the male seed. It's no accident. Because the fathers are trying to push their sons into what God had called them to be. But here it is in Exodus chapter 1 that Pharaoh sees that the men are growing, that the men are numerous, the men are exploding. And so what he says is the way that I'm going to destroy them is by killing the male seed. Doesn't that sound familiar? In our day and our time, that many of our men are being killed, so many of our men are in prison, so many of our men are out of God's position that he called them to be in. The reason why the enemy is attacking our men, because he knows that when men stand up, that when men move their proper place, the family is going to be intact. The family is going to be blessed. God is going to be honored and praised. That when it is, the men move to their proper place. And so in this faith journey of Moses, I wanted to point that out to you, that right from the beginning, we see the enemy is trying to destroy the men. But here it is in verse number 23, Hebrews 11, verse number 23. The Bible says, by faith, Moses, when he was born, was hidden 3 months by his parents, because they saw he was a beautiful child, and they were not afraid of the king's command. So let me walk through verse 23 with you real quick. That Moses was born during the time when children, as I said earlier, male children, are commanded by the authority to be killed. So here it is, that just by virtue of Moses living, it is a proof of faith in God. Now, I just want you to grab that just by his living means that God is in control. That just by him making it through in order not to be killed proves that God has a plan over his life, that God has something special for his life. There's a mandate, there's a decree. Pharaoh has established it, told the midwives that when it is that a male is born, kill him. But Moses escapes because God has destiny on his life. So here it is. Moses is protected by his parents for 3 months. If they are found, I want you to understand this, if they are found to be hiding their child, they would be killed. But what they are saying is that we trust God by faith now. There's a blessing in our faith. We trust God more than we care about what Pharaoh's talking about. So when it is that they move towards God, they are showing their faith in God. They're showing their trust in God, and they're moving at God's command. So what do? That when it was time that they couldn't hide him anymore, they put him in a river. I just want y'all to see the faith walk. That you are going to put a 3-month-old baby in a river and trust that God's going to take care of him. There's alligators in that river. There's snakes in the river. How in the world is he going to stay in whatever makeshift boat that they put him in? How is he going to stay in it? He's 3 months old. But they trust and have faith in God that God is going to provide. Moses' parents trusted God would take care of them instead of. So here's what I want you to grab. I want you to understand this. That faith will always conquer fear. That when it is that I trust God, I'm putting my faith in God, that fear has to get out of the way. I say it often that faith and fear can't reside in the same place. One of them has to go. And so whenever faith is there, fear got to get out of there. But then on the flip side, if you're fearful and afraid, you can't have faith. Because faith and fear are not going to be in the same place. So we got to understand that we got to make sure that we walk by faith in order to conquer our fears. So here it is in verse number 24 through 26. We're looking at the faith journey of Moses. By faith, Moses, when he became of age, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the passing pleasures of sin, esteeming the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasure in Egypt, for he looked to the reward. So I told you that Moses' parents put him in the river, trusting and having faith in God. So watch what God does. That God allows the very one that made the decree, made his daughter get Moses out of the river and bring him into Pharaoh's house. Oh Lord, y'all missed that. Everybody in here ought to have been shouting. You should have been up on your feet. You should have been clapping your hands, because look what God does. Is that the parents have no idea how God's going to show up. Has no idea how God's going to turn this thing around. Have no idea how their son is going to be safe. But what does God do? God allows Pharaoh's daughter, the very one, Pharaoh, who made the decree for Moses to be dead. Now he has Pharaoh's daughter go to the river at the exact time Moses passing by, and allows her to grab Moses out of the river, bring him into Pharaoh's house, and make sure Pharaoh takes care of him. That ain't all the story. That if you read into it a little bit more, they actually have Moses' mama come be his nursemaid. God is so amazing, y'all. But here it is, that God had a plan for Moses, and nobody could stand in the way of what it was that God had in store for Moses. This is what I don't want you to miss, is that God has a plan for you. And the same way that God has a plan for Moses, or had a plan for Moses, he had a plan for you. And no devil in hell can abort the plan that God has for you in your life. And so you keep serving, you keep trusting, keep having faith in God, and God will turn things in your life around for his glory. So that's what happens. Then the Bible says, as Moses gets older, he refuses to live in a place that oppresses God's people. So Pharaoh, he had the children of Israel in slavery. He oppressed them. He was a hard taskmaster. But Moses says that I refuse to live in a place to where the people of God are oppressed. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. says it like this: injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So what Dr. King is telling us, what Moses is telling us as well, is that life is not just about you being comfortable, but God's call on our life is to help somebody else. I know you live in a 4-bedroom house. I know you got a nice car, you got money in the bank, but your life and God blessing you and providing provision of your life is just not about you. That God blesses us to be a blessing. What Moses says is that I can't sit back and see God's people be oppressed and do nothing. What Dr. King encourages us to understand, that if there's injustice in a place, don't you just sit back on your laurels because you're doing all right and justice is happening okay for you. Because at any moment, the tables could turn. At any moment, you may not be in that blessed place. So it is important for each one of us to find the way that we can help somebody else. You don't need to live a selfish life, thinking about just yourself and just your family and just your concern. My life is centered around helping somebody else. If I can help somebody along the way, if I can benefit them, if I can encourage them, that is what God calls me to do. That is what Moses says, that I can't sit here and knowing that the people of God are being oppressed. Moses teaches us that you have to be willing to give up temporary pleasure for an eternal reward. Somebody ought to write that down. That you have to be able to give up temporary pleasure for an eternal reward. Because God has an eternal reward that outweighs anything that we can get here in this temporary earth. On this time of life and this side of life, that whatever you gain, whatever you accumulate, it doesn't even compare to what God has in store for you. So stop scratching and scraping in order to get a new this or a new that, or a bigger this or a bigger that. But understand that our treasures should be laid up in heaven, because we want an eternal reward. Yeah, I know that you like this nice thing and want to take this vacation and go here, but we understand that we have to sometimes be willing to sacrifice temporarily on the pleasures that we look forward to, because we're looking for an eternal reward. And that's exactly what Moses was showing us, that I'm not going to stay in this palace eating good, living good, when I know that I should be doing more. I should be helping somebody. I should be serving somebody. And that's exactly what he's done. But he did all that by faith, y'all. That's what I'm telling you, is that Moses didn't know how this thing's going to turn out. He didn't know how this situation was going to move, but he trusted God, had faith in God, and moved according to what God would have him to do. So drop down with me, verse number 27 through 29. Still talking about Moses. By faith he forsook Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the king. For he endured as seeing him who is invisible. By faith he kept the Passover, and the sprinkling of blood, lest he who destroyed the firstborn should touch them. By faith they passed through the Red Sea as by dry land, whereas the Egyptians attempting to do so were drowned. So Moses said he couldn't stay there. He left Egypt not knowing where he was going next. But the reason why he left Egypt is because he killed an Egyptian that was abusing God's people. I promise you, I wish I had more time to really dig into every part of this story, because the Hebrew writer really kind of pushes quickly through it, because he's talking to an audience who would understand the story, who would understand what's going on. And what he's trying to do is connect their walk of faith with the Bible narratives. And so he's trying to help pull out different people and say, hey, you see what he did? You see how he moved? You see how she obeyed God? That was not just them trusting God, but it was also an act of their faith. It was also a demonstration of their faith. So Moses left Egypt after killing an Egyptian because he's abusing God's people. And so here it is, Moses goes to the wilderness, not knowing what's next, but having faith in God. But then what God did is he met Moses in the wilderness and instructed Moses after he was in the wilderness for 40 years. He says, now I need for you, Moses, to go back to Egypt to free my people. God had a plan, I told you. You see Moses' life, you see the strategy, you see the strategic moves that he makes. This is all a setup and a plan in order to send Moses back to Egypt. So that's what God says. I need you to go back to Egypt. Moses, though, was met with resistance by Pharaoh. God sent plagues to the land. I promise you, I'm moving fast. I'm sorry, y'all. He sent the plagues to convince Pharaoh to go. Pharaoh's hard-headed. He's pushing back. He's not willing to let the people go. And so he's staying steadfast. So here it is. The final plague was the death of all the firstborn, except for those who had the blood of the lamb across the doorpost. So God instructs Moses to tell the people of God that when this plague comes to kill all the firstborn, the way that the death angel is going to know to spare them is because there's going to be blood over the doorpost. And so, but it was faith in God is what I want you to understand. It was faith in God that forced Moses to go back to Egypt. That's why he went. I know you thought it was something else. But it was faith in God, because he knows he's going back to a hostile environment. He knows he's going back to a place that don't like folks that look like him, the folks that talk like him. After what he did, he's a man on the run. And so when he goes back, he knows he's going back. But faith took him back. Faith in God, and he knew that Pharaoh would let God's people go. That he had to have faith in God to even ask the question to move forward. Faith in God, even, I want you to see this, the people of God had to have faith in God to believe that blood over a doorpost would cover the death of their firstborn. Y'all hearing this is that we're saying that all I'm doing is putting blood over a door, and because I put blood over a door, that's going to spare my child. That's going to want you to really get this, is that, yeah, it will save your child. And really, God has given us a type of Christ to understand that the same way that the lamb being crucified, sacrificed, and the blood of the lamb covering that doorpost in order to give the children of God the opportunity to live, is the same way that Christ went to that cruel cross of Calvary, and his blood saves us from our sin and allows us not to die a death, but to give us life eternal. So you understand when it is that when you are in Christ, when you're covered by the blood of Christ, you made a commitment to Christ, that when it is that we move from this side of life to the other side, we are not dead, we're just asleep. And we're waiting for that great getting up morning when the dead in Christ shall rise. And so I understand and know that the only reason I'm going to rise is because I'm covered by the blood. Covered by the blood. And that blood allows me to be able to miss death and to be able to rise in Christ. To rise in Christ. And that's what it is. That's faith though, y'all. Because you don't see the blood. You just got faith in God that you're covered by the blood. It's not anything tangible. It's not anything that I can touch, I can feel. But I can put my hands on it, that I can see it. But I know that I'm covered by the blood, and I know what the blood does. But then Moses, even that ain't even the craziest part, y'all. The greatest test of his faith, I believe, is when they got to the Red Sea. So they were allowed to make it, or allowed to leave Egypt, and here they go. They're moving towards out of Egyptian bondage, and so they make it to the Red Sea, and Pharaoh changes his mind. He says, "You know what? I don't want to let y'all go no more. I'm doing something different now." And so he pushes behind them. They get to the Red Sea, and here they are at the Red Sea. Pharaoh and his army behind them, the Red Sea in front of them. God says, "What's in your hand, Moses?" He has a staff in his hand. He pulls up the rod, and God parts the Red Sea. They go through on dry land. You see it right there in verse number 29. They go through on dry land. And what happens after they go through on dry land? The Egyptians are in pursuit of them. The Egyptians are in pursuit of them. And as they are in pursuit of them, what happens is they are drowned by that same water that God allowed them to go through. It's all right. It's all right. It's all right, Sister Nelson. God allowed them to be saved. God allowed them to make it through. God allowed them to be saved because they had faith in God that God was going to take care of them. God was going to let them make it. God was going to allow them to make it to the other side. I just wanted you to see on tonight the faith journey of Moses. That God shows up over and over again. God shows up in amazing ways to let them know that I'm God and I'm God all by myself. And when you have faith in me, everything's going to work out. So that's what God does. But he doesn't just do it for Moses. Doesn't just do it for Jacob and Esau. Doesn't just do it for Isaac. Just doesn't do it for Joseph, Manasseh, and Ephraim. But he does it for each of us. We have faith in him. So my challenge to you on this evening is to put your trust in God, build your faith, and watch what God can do. God strategically aligned all the things in the life of Moses. He strategically aligned things in your life as well. Just depend on him, just trust him, and everything's going to work out. I just wanted to share that with you on this evening as we continue to build our faith through Hebrews 11, and we understand the blessings of our faith. So men, speak life into your children. Trust God all throughout the process. Look at Moses' life, everybody, and see how God did it for him. He'll do the same for us. So we trust him. We got faith in him because we know that there's a blessing in our faith. I just want to share a few things with you before we say good night on this evening. I want you to be praying for James Holt. He did a number of tests. Into that testing, the doctors are encouraged. I want to thank you all for praying for him, praying for both him and Sylvia. They've been through a difficult season, but God's been good to them. God's favored them, and so we're grateful for their love. It's such good news. We don't know it yet, but we trusting by faith it's going to happen. Such good news that he may not even require surgery. I'm grateful to God for what it is that God has already given us a glimpse of, but I'm saying by faith and trusting in faith that God's going to do it. God's going to turn the situation around. The doctor even said that there has been improvement from December of their scan until now. Ain't God good? That how he will work when nobody else can work. He can do what nobody else can do. So we're praying for you, James. Thank you, Sylvia, for sharing that with us. But we're praying. James has a birthday tomorrow, so y'all wish him a happy birthday as well. Next Wednesday, we are delivering snacks to Murray Regional Hospital. So please, everybody, bring your snacks. Not this Wednesday, but next Wednesday. And while we're there, we're going to take a group photo. So if there's anybody available that can take the photo with us, Alicia McGuire takes the snacks every single week for us on our behalf. So she's definitely going to be there. And her helper, Jacinda, she's going to be there with her as well. But they want to share that on their social media platforms because they appreciate the support that Carmack has given them during this pandemic season. And so they said, listen, y'all been sending messages, y'all been sending snacks, y'all been blessing us, and we noticed it. And so we'd like to take a picture of you and recognize your efforts. So put that on your calendar. Not this Wednesday, next Wednesday. Dress up, look good now, get your hair fixed, your nails done, all that good stuff, because we want to take a good Carmack picture. And so if you can be available with us, by all means, join us there as we take a picture of Murray Regional Hospital on next Wednesday. Then on Sunday, this coming Sunday, make plans to arrive at the building at 10:15. Be there at 10:15 because it's our first Sunday prayer service. We're going to arrive at 10:15, make preparations, and then we're going to go into our prayer service. It doesn't make any difference if it's a pandemic. It don't make any difference if it's a tornado. It doesn't make any difference if it's a hurricane. Whatever's going on, we start our first Sunday in prayer. And so that's what we're going to do on the first Sunday in July. We're going to start prayer service. That's who we are. That's our foundation at Carmack, is that we start every first Sunday in prayer. So we'd love for you to be there. Go to the website, carmackchurch.org, and share your prayer request. We will honor them on Sunday. We'll be praying for you and with you. It always feels good when we start our month in prayer, and God blesses and favors us, and we're thankful for that. So we ain't changing nothing as it relates to our prayer service. We're going to continue to be in prayer. So this Sunday, make sure you're there. Call somebody, invite somebody. Again, if you don't feel safe coming out just yet, just log on, join us on Facebook, join us on our website, join us on any of the platforms, and we will be in prayer service on Sunday. So be there at 10:15. Shortly after that, we'll get started with our prayer service. That's all I have for this evening. I'm going to pray with you and ask God's blessings over you. You have a good night. Dear God, we thank you for this evening. We thank you for the blessings of faith. God, we thank you for what you speak into our lives. We thank you for the example that you show us. And God, we're thankful that we can count on you and depend on you, and you'll lead us through.